Наш следующий разговор будет о том, что есть у каждого из нас в кармане.
Now we're going to speak about what do we have in our pockets. Mobile phones.
С множеством его мобильных приложений.
Mobile phone with a lot of applications.
В мире защищенности мобильных приложений вместе с Николаем Анисени
We're going to speak about mobile applications with Nikolai, head of security of mobile applications and positive technologies. Hello, Nikolai.
мобилка касается каждого.
Everybody has mobile.
За
We always are afraid for the information that we have in our mobile phones, those IT services that we use. Can you tell us which are the recent trends, threats, changes in the area of mobile phones and mobile applications?
За 2021 год свое лидерство
In the year 2021, the leadership is kept by the vulnerabilities on unsafe storage. It's a class of vulnerabilities.
уровне третье от всех уязвимостей,
On the level of 1/3 of vulnerabilities is vulnerabilities of this class.
что далеко не
But we have to point out that
легко извлечь.
in a lot of cases, it's very hard to read this information. So you speak about the safety of mobile data.
к моим
So the access to my photos,
Речь скорее
to my mobile files,
файлы
not even about files or photos,
регулируют
because access to photos is regulated by
тех разрешений, которые пользователь выдает приложению.
permissions given by the user to applications,
Приложение, то есть каждый,
but the access to the container of applications, because every container,
к которому не имеет
well, every application has its own container to which other applications don't have access, and they usually store some storage keys,
но тем не менее какие-то
encoding keys, maybe some other data which allows them to identify user,
какой-нибудь
вот, надо
some token or whatever. And speaking about these examples, I have the banking mobile application and let's say some social network.
мои данные хранятся в том,
Which of my data is stored in both of these applications, and
хранятся данные
especially when you speak that these data is stored in these containers. What's so important may be stored there?
чтобы не скачивались, например,
Well, they can have some cache so that same photos are not going to be downloaded for the same time. Then they can store some of the communications which are available after internet have disappeared. It's very convenient to enter the messenger and look at some messages even if you don't have internet at this particular place.
ну, для злоумышленника, потому что все-таки тайный
And if the criminal, well, the secrecy of communication has to be protected, but the most critical thing is that token
которое мобильное приложение
by sending which mobile application allows the server to
на сервере
see you
пользователя.
and do certain actions in the system on behalf of the user. So this is a certain key which allows my mobile application to get authorized on the side of a certain service, for example, a bank.
Ключом. Ну, это просто какое-то большое случайное значение, которое
It's some big value which is very difficult to forecast, but if it's stored unsafely and certain vulnerabilities allow you to read it, so the criminal, when he gets this token, his actions will not be different from the actions of regular user. So by stealing this data from my application, this person will be able from his own mobile device to enter and simulate as if I'm doing it.
представить перед
Not just from mobile device, but
все, и он получает полный доступ к тому серверу.
and he will get full access to the service that I was using on behalf of my name.
например, в банковских приложениях требует подтверждения.
Yeah, some actions they require confirmation by one-time password, so he's not going to get access to these actions. But for example, well, compared to speaking about learning the password and it hiding a token,
Защита в виде двух
he can create a dual-factor authentication. So if we send token, one-time password will not be required for all the actions. But if you put login and password,
во многих современных сервисах
then in many modern services, especially the most critical ones, it's not going to work. And you have to take this one-time password from authentifier or SMS message. It's going to be much more difficult. Okay, I understand that. This data is stored on a mobile device. Let's go back to the trends.
уверенное лидерство сохраняет уязвимости как раз этого.
Leadership is the vulnerabilities of this class. And exploiting, they can be exploited in different ways.
Один из способов это
One of those ways is when you install malicious code in your device. Another way is when you can follow certain links. Because not many people know about mobile applications as sites. They can process links. locally on the device. So following certain links, it might happen that some of these links can be malicious and it might attack your device or an application. So it can be an entry point for the criminal to exploit different vulnerabilities, including still something that is stored unsafely. And this year, in the year 2021, we've been discovering vulnerabilities which allow criminals to get around inbuilt mechanisms of protection or frameworks which are used by developers for creating applications. And they're able to get to that data which is difficult to extract in another way. So the data may be stored very unsecurely, but it's difficult to get access to them without encoding, or you store something that shouldn't be stored, or you store something that in the wrong place. So what it's connected to? It's connected to the fact that, for example, right now the same framework, Flutter, is actively being broadcast and many people use it. By its structure, by its design, it's not that it's closing the hands of the developer, but it helps them to write a more complicated code. It's more complicated to read this code. It has the protection from the traffic interception. And speaking about Flutter development, it's much more difficult to develop bad code. And last year, we've seen that analysis systems of those applications are late. And right now we see more and more articles among developers which show how to analyze the malicious applications and applications for searching vulnerabilities. And our experts, Philip Nikiforov, have developed a tool like Reflatter, which helps researchers to look at the applications written in Flutter. So why am I speaking about it? There is a certain trend among developers to rely on inbuilt protection frameworks of operational system protection mechanisms. For example, Android makes big steps in the direction for the developers to make less errors. And from year to year, we see that less and less functions are available by default, and you have to announce certain functions of applications. Obviously, you have to announce them only in those cases when you need them. When they've been announced by default in some old versions, it gave extended surface of attack for the attacker. So developers had to follow so that they wouldn't open the extra doors. And speaking about the protection of mobile operation systems, they can be looked from two sides, Android and iOS, right? Basically, yes, two of them. Can we compare them? Which one is more protected, which one is less protected? Well, it's not that you can, but you have to compare. And they are very similar, especially when I've been speaking that every application works in its own container. But there are certain difficulties. For example, inter-process messaging system is more developed in the Android operating system, which means that one mobile application can communicate with another one. So if I have installed a malicious software containing malicious code in my device, it can get access to another application, right? Yeah, some application can announce functions which can be called from other. For example, you enter the gallery, you press share the photo, you see the list of applications which have the function of sharing the photos. In iOS, it works a little bit differently. This mechanism is available, but it's realized with extensions in applications. And these extensions are hidden in separate containers. They follow certain protocols, so it's much more difficult to make an error there. With Android, it's done within one application, and the vulnerabilities are related in these inter-process relations. And in the most critical cases, you can drop a link without installing any malicious code, because links can be realized in those applications. Also, you can install certain malicious code, which at certain moment of time, certain file will be substituted and maybe unseen for the user. With these inter-process relations, they will intercept some vulnerable application, and it's going to happen like that. Which rules one have to follow while using Android in order not to become a victim, considering the fact that architecturally, it is assumed that, first of all, the operating system is more open than iOS, and second of all, that he has a possibility of such relations between applications, because it opens a lot of vulnerabilities for the... So the Android user should be more prepared and educated than iOS.
атакам хакерским?
to withstand hacker attacks? Well, he should understand which attacks we're fighting, because everything depends on the model of the. If we are afraid against the spied applications like camera and phones, well, vulnerabilities, well, this can be done in Android and iOS devices. But on the other side, if you're afraid of the attack against our banking application, then Android user not in more danger, but he should understand that probability of making a mistake in Android application is much higher. So please don't download from unprotected stores. And this is actual trend, by the way. Applications of certain banks, they've been removed from official markets from which you have to download it. So users are looking for the possibility, for example, by buying new iPhone and transferring data, they are not able to transfer this bank application, and they're installing it from third-party sources. It's better to go to the banks, and banks are making steps towards those users and helping them in installing these applications properly. And you can install these applications for Android and for iPhone.
Об этом моменте поговорим, а потом вернемся к...
Okay, let's speak about it, and let's go back to iOS afterwards. Many mobile applications, including banks, they have been removed from the app stores. What should we do?
Когда идешь в банк, допустим,
So you go to the bank. For example, I would like to install Sberbank application. It's not available in App Store or Google Play. Then I go to the bank and ask them to give me the link. How it works?
В зависимости от того, какой это банк,
First of all, irrespectively to which bank it is,
перейти на официальный сайт.
you should go to the official site
Потому что, как правило,
from your mobile phone, because usually it is defined that you came from your mobile phone, and usually you're being offered to install the application, and most likely bank has provided this case, because for Android you can download APK file, for iOS you can follow the link,
доверие к разработчику.
you can confirm the trust to the developer, and then like in Windows it's going to be installed. If this is done in the bank, then iPhone user, without leaving Safari, is going to be able to use that, and the Android user will make a check mark, install the application from untrusted sources, or maybe from the trusted source, but you have to be convinced that you downloaded from the official source, the source which you trust. For example, it's a bank employee gave you in a support chat in the web version, or maybe in a bank department, or the technical support department person have sent you an SMS message. It happens differently. On my phone, it works, but I know of cases when my friends went to the bank and they've been helped to install application around the market.
вернемся к операционной системе,
Okay, let's go back to the iOS operation system.
что 99
I'm confident that 99.5% of users on the iPhone are convinced that, well, I don't care about all these hacker attacks because I have iPhone and it's well protected. Is it?
Можешь ли привести какие-то примеры,
And can you give us examples of attacks against iOS users?
которые
At least maybe not exotic ones, but common ones.
На самом деле, самая распространенная атака именно
Well, the most common attack against user and not application, because
атака с помощью вредоносов.
this is attacked through the malicious code, and it's leading in the course of several years, like some phishing in the web or to the internet. A person downloads some untrusted application. So being an iPhone user, I receive a link, both like in email or through the messenger. Not mandatory. This is one of the options, but malicious codes can be in the App Store, in the Play Market as well. Because even though they have verification processes and it's been verified, but it's not ideal condition, and very often malicious software are leaking there. There was a case when developers from China,
Скачивали не
I might mistake, they've downloaded unlicensed code because they cannot buy licensed code, even though it was not expensive.
в Xcode.
And it is pirate Xcode. During the assembly of the application, they've added malicious libraries. So developers, by publishing their application, they didn't know they're publishing the malicious code. So even with the help of such scenarios, malicious code can enter your device, and not only in the case when somebody has discovered something in his phone. Oh, I'm a user. I'm the iPhone user. My practical case. Just recently, I received a doubtful letter from the bank. I didn't know whether it's a bank's letter or not. It had a link. I've pressed it.
начал грузить эту ссылку,
The phone started downloading this link. I thought maybe something doubtful, and I've stopped Safari. Was there a chance that I was caught by some virus? Yes, of course there was a chance.
На самом деле разные уязвимости отрабатывают по-разному.
because different vulnerabilities work differently.
Вообще никакого взаимодействия с
In some other vulnerabilities, they don't need any cooperation with the user. It's a zero-click one, like with the iPhone. Yeah.
разные команды там.
And regularly, they find a lot of different commands in those vulnerabilities. In iMessenger, they recently discovered one of those.
В WhatsApp было в прошлом году.
In WhatsApp last year, there was such vulnerability. But some vulnerabilities, they need cooperation of the user. And there's a chance
Загрузка.
that you had to wait to the download or the page for the vulnerability to work. I've discovered some of them.
Может
Then timely closing can help you.
как бы пытаться.
But you shouldn't try to open it, not in a private folder, not in regular folder,
Обработку ссылок.
especially speaking about those links, because if the link is being processed, it doesn't matter, private or not private. But if you have any doubts, you've pressed doubtful link.
Ну, факт произошел. Что делать?
It's a fact.
Я думаю, стоит,
What should you do next?
да, если у вас есть подозрение, то есть что
First of all, if you have
можно
doubt that it came from the bank,
разлогиниться в приложении банка,
you need to log off of the bank application.
чистить кэш,
Then you should clean the Safari cache
потому что иногда
if you followed non-private link, because sometimes there's a possibility of kill the browser's cache in application, and by this attack will be discovered much earlier, so the attack will not be used by the connection to the unsafe Wi-Fi.
можно там
You can do something like that. You can re-download application.
ввести телефон в то состояние, да, в
So
котором
you should put mobile phone in such a condition when malicious code is not going to work. The simplest one is to clean the cache. Yes.
Последний у меня к тебе вопрос.
And the final question I have to you:
Последние месяцы
in recent months, did you see any new techniques,
атак.
practices of attacks against mobile users?
техник на
Honestly, I didn't see any new techniques.
самый проверенный. То есть
They use the most tested ones.
получить какой-то
Criminals want to get some profit from the attack,
максимально,
so they're using maximally effective methods.
как я уже говорил, самый эффективный.
And as I've told you, the most effective method is to make the user to download some malicious code,
Клоны приложений,
which looks like the application clone or a free version or the bank's version, which was deleted from the market.
относить, наверное, к тем трендам, за
These can be considered as those trends which are followed by the criminals, and they use any case to do it. And a final question: what should I do right now
Чтобы развеять мои сомнения относительно
in order to clear my doubts that potentially in my mobile device I might have some malicious code? What should I do? Kill the browser's cache?
только если есть какие-то
It's not necessary. If you have certain doubts, first of all, you can look which applications have been installed. Doubtful applications, yes, and remove them. Yes. In iPhone, they have screen time. And do you see an application which starts automatically? So applications which work and you don't even know about that? Yeah, most likely.
может быть и ничего интересного.
There might be nothing interesting, and you can find something interesting out there. Also, you can look at applications which work in the night.
Да, можно посмотреть,
Yes, you can look at those applications.
установлено на телефон.
Don't look at what is installed on the phone, but which service has been used. For example, different social networks and different accounts. In the profile section, they can see from which devices the session was initiated in this application.
Тот же, например,
And you can use unused ones. For example, Telegram allows you to look.
трех устройств.
For example, I have access from 3 devices: my work computer, notebook, and mobile application. If due to some reason I see the 4th device,
Хороший
for
такой
me,
сигнал, вдруг что-то
it's a good sign something went wrong. Maybe I've entered from another phone, or maybe my password have leaked.
с точки зрения.
So you can also look from this point of view. And in order to keep yourself on the safe side,
Но стать менее привлекательным.
not completely, but become less attractive victim, and this is related not only to mobile application users, you should use a two-factor authentication everywhere. Then you become super non-interesting victim. It's better to attack those who don't have this
Точкам,
and don't get connected to doubtful Wi-Fi points. And speaking about trends,
использовать
in recent months, please use that VPN which you trust, because a VPN is being attacked by the middleman, man in the middle.
ну, они могут недоверенный VPN, поскольку
Non-trusted VPN, because it's the gateway for your device. It's the if the application has vulnerability in the area of data transfer. But do you know that this is a bad VPN by the number of users? There's a simple one. For example, you enter a certain site, very popular site like Yandex, Google, or whatever, and suddenly browser tells you that connection is not safe. Please confirm that you want to use untrusted certificate.
Индикатор того, что что-то
It's a good indicator that something wrong with the connection. And sometimes when you have a blocking before you enter the number of your room, sometimes no, sometimes the certificate is being replaced. For example, some applications,
самый безопасный и популярный, да, вот берем там любой
the safest and the most popular ones that you use, like messengers or the same telegrams and whatever, suddenly they stop working with the connected VPN,
соединение является
which can witness us that these connections are not reliable, and application decided not to use it. It can give you a message that the connection is not reliable. Some bank applications do something like that, or maybe it's not going to give it. It may be an error without saying, but you should pay attention to the fact that some VPN services are making money in other way. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was Nikolai Veselin who told us about the security of mobile applications. And please remember, mobile phone, it's a small but a full-scale, powerful and modern computer. And criminal doesn't care how he will attack you through this small device or through the big computer. His main goal
что-то в свою
is to do something for his own benefit, steal money or steal data. That's why, please be careful with your mobile devices, even though if it's iPhone.